there is a lot of toxicity and division in fandom, which I can just see on the
Oh, yes,
outside.
yes.
And I
Yeah.
wouldn't like to be the showrunner, and that's why I struggle
No.
with being able, some streams who will just rant. I can't just
Mm.
crucify people, because there has to be something in it where they either have a passion for the program. Yes, they might have a political passion too. I don't think anyone should be getting crucified or attacked in such a personal way. I don't. I really don't. I struggle with that. I've spent
But
30 years as
Brendan,
a teacher.
but there'd be a difference. So this, let's face it, both RTD and Moffat ran between 5 and 7 years apiece in terms of successful Doctor Who. They both had good long tenures of successful Doctor Who. And of course there were people with mixed opinions on every episode. But I can tell you now, the when the show's heading in the upward direction, I'm sure you're not too that stuff's water off a duck's back. But when the show's on the decline and you're not able to pull up, or you're not willing to pull up, or whatever the reason is, you're not able to rescue it, then all of this stuff is obviously going to come in and start to get inside your brain, isn't it?
The thing is, I've got to be honest, and I think me and Boomer Doug have discovered this. We have our own little tiny channels, and people give you feedback, and you can't guarantee what the feedback will be. I mean, everybody remembers in our house Christmas Day last year, funnily enough. It wasn't the blooming episode we were brewing about. At the Christmas table, remember, Sensphere started around December the 16th. So we did the Giggle review, and suddenly, I was learning. I didn't even know I could manage a thread. I didn't know anything really. I just, I was just doing this. And suddenly people were giving you feedback, which, let's be honest, overall is lovely. And people are so supportive.
It's lovely.
Lovely little
Yeah, it's
community.
mostly
And I know,
lovely.
Boomer Doug, you feel the
Except
same.
when it's puppets.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it
except
hurts
when
when
it's
they don't like you.
But on Christmas Day last year, so 2 weeks into, sorry, actually, no, I'm lying. 1 week into this Sensphere start, I had a very, very, very long email thread with an Australian, actually. And at the dining room table, I broke all the rules. I had to keep replying like a typical teacher.
You told me about this,
Yeah. And they were being clever ass with me, and I was being clever ass with my language back, going, no, but we're trying to do this, and we're trying to do this. Yeah.
You engaged. You shouldn't engage.
I engaged. But that's when I have to say I sympathize with Steven Moffat, RTD, even Chris Chibnall. Of course I do, because there's something in them that wants to do it for the right reasons to a degree. And I know some people are so cynical now that they're going, Brendan, get real. No, I have to believe that there's something in everybody. I'm sorry. I can't go down a pile drive, everybody's evil road. I can't.
No, absolutely not.
And so and I know Steven Moffat is a clever, cheeky, mischievous man. And normally when he's making a serious point, he does a nice touch of exaggeration and that. I'd hate to think he was called all those things, but I do believe if I've had a few little dodgy emails now and again, I can really believe he has. And RTD. And but I don't think you'd do it. I mean, Doug, I know in a different world, if you were, I know you're a good skilled artist, but if you were a writer by trade, knowing what you know about this online world, would you ever, if you were offered the job of showrunner, would you do it?
No. It would. Oh, no, I think I'd have a nervous breakdown. Particularly something like Doctor Who. Everybody's so passionate, and I think the passion, unfortunately, manifests itself in a lot of strong emotion, which sometimes comes across as hatred. And it's I've really noticed the toxicity since the 60th anniversary, particularly, and I've been really surprised, if I'm honest, about how venomous some of the comments are and how personal. It's a bit sad. I just love my little show. That's all I want to do. Watch my little show.
Yeah, I always think play the ball, not the man. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
I try and argue about the script. I try and argue about the effect. I try and argue about the narrative.
You're very fair. You're very fair, to give you credit. Your shows are very fair and very balanced. And I think, long before I knew you, Sense Sphere was a really good title because you talk sense and you're very balanced. Whereas there are some channels that they tend to focus on the negative, and I understand why. But there are two sides to every story and two sides to every coin. And I think, yeah, play the ball, not the man. Absolutely.
Yeah, you try. I mean, I don't know that. And the thing is, there's no way. Some people want me to go a bit more on a vent, but the truth is, how can I just dislocate from 30 years of being a teacher and head of year in charge of kids and stopping bullying and everything if I suddenly, without knowing the person, just pile drive in and just slag off everything about that person? It would break the chemistry in my head.
Do you know what though? Like, I would never, as much as I don't like certain aspects of the show, I wouldn't go and stick it to RTD or Moffat or whatever. But to be fair though, when they get, I've never really seen this from Moffat. I think he's pretty cool, calm character from this perspective. But I mean, RTD has gone out there and stuck his middle finger up at people, and he's basically asked for it. And if you go on shows and start preach like Unleashed and start preaching the world of RTD, then man, you basically deserve what you get.
No, you make a good point. While I try and say, look, I'm trying to hold a line. I do think there has been provocative and triggering interviews that have hardly settled fandom down, and they are all.
Do you think
they're
it's
almost
been deliberately provocative, Brendan? Do you think it's been deliberately provocative? It sounds sometimes like he has been. What do you think?
Yes, I think one of my early saloons I need to come back to one day and actually just pull some of the interview back up where RTD did sound like, because he's sounding much more overly political. And obviously it's deliberately, look, we've just had the presidential election in America where a lot of us as observers have seen that you saw a country go really binary, very binary. It was either Hitler or the savior of the human race. It was really kind of
extreme, wasn't it?
It was extremely out there, and therefore the hyperbole had gone so far beyond. There was no evidence to back it up. It was just absolute nonsense. And I think most of our country's liberal democracies are falling into this kind of hyper language just to make a point. But then once you've won your case, you can't heal the deal. So basically, you've got everybody, half the country fired up, half the fandom fired up, and the other half angry. So it doesn't work anymore. You're not pulling it together. I was hoping RTD with the 3 specials, then and continue, would just try and go establish Doctor Who for what Doctor Who's famous for, play safe to a degree, and just get it running again, and that would heal. And then, if we didn't have Star Beast with the pronouns and the female presenting Time Lord, it may have passed. If we didn't have Isaac Newton as an Asian, it might have passed. We might have just bedded in Doctor Who again. That's more reuniting. But where I do have an issue with RTD, which is what you're saying, Dan, is he is deliberately trying to be controversial. So therefore, you're not going to heal.
Yeah, but also, he as a showrunner, he's gotten on social media and gotten political and then made comments. As soon as you get political, you're immediately alienating 50% of the audience. Statistically.
Exactly.
Your goal should be to have the biggest audience and have everyone in on it. You should be, if you're show running, if you're doing anything in the public eye, you should be saying nothing that splits any kind of audience. You should be walking a line. I would argue we shouldn't even know what your politics are, other than, possibly what's in your writing, because there's nothing to be gained by splitting your audience.
I prefer the Malcolm Hulk approach, which is you show the different politics of the different characters, but you give them a saving grace. They are not ultimately evil. And And I think that's a kinder approach. You know, everybody on their profile says be kind. It's a kinder approach to actually have a character who you give them, it might be a misintention, but you can see why they have that intention. You can see, oh, something happened to them when they were younger. To me, that's more realistic. Every bully I had in my school office had a sob story and something bad had happened in their life. You know, I mean, they weren't evil. They were kids who had issues. And that's surely what a good program, any program, should be replicating. That if it's a cop out to say somebody's evil, I don't like that path in Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's like calling everyone Nazis. Once you use that, once you go to that extreme of language, you've
lost the argument.
You've lost the argument. You're not even in the debate anymore.
Yeah. And it's when I've accused all media of shorthand now, instead of actually trying to say, right, there's nuance, there's subtlety, there's complexity. We're actually bright enough to deal with it, you know. But as I said to you both about the Blinovich limitation effect has now become timey-wimey dialogue. You know, we can't cope. Blinovich limitation effect was kind of burned into my head as a kid. Like, what's that? And, you know, it sounded great. And of course, you know, when we talk about kids are struggling to read and concentrate because of online social media and everything, and I know you Labour people, there's in Australia, there's an interesting policy they're proposing that anybody under 16 shouldn't have access to online social media.
Yes, my nieces and nephews are talking about this at the moment. And I think it's a real, it shows an out of touchness because a lot of kids today, their whole world of interaction after school or whatever is online. And especially you're talking about a generation that you're locked up for 4 years, guys. So you've kind of created this dependency.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, kids, you're not allowed out. You're not allowed to do anything, but you've got a phone. So they had access to the world while they were
stuck in
up.
high density living now.
Yeah.
You don't have your houses with your backyards anymore.
No, you make a very good point. This is all sci-fi concept. This is the whole thing that should be getting
it's Paradise Towers.
Yeah. Now, just great debate, and let's just see what we've got left. But Rachel, there's a lot of toxicity in the industry alone, and she will know as an actress, and that's why we love her on. Clearly, it didn't ruin his life, or he wouldn't be back. It's how you react that can create issues. Doesn't mean it's right, though. So you see, that's, you know, Rachel giving another viewpoint. You know, yes. Yeah, you can't have a thin skin in the industry. I'm sure every actor and actress doesn't like to read reviews. Let's be honest. That's something that they always say. But he did come back. He knew what he was doing, I suppose, is a good point from Rachel there. But obviously, I will like praise when I see it. Eastland Burkholder says, I like Brendan's puppets. Ray, well, we're doing a puppet show. I've just done the very first. I've just done the first one where the puppets interview one panelist. And we're stockpiling them up, and I'm trying to make it as much like the Muppets as possible. And of course, Cybermat Strikes, we are gunning for you. We're daring you to come on. Oh, yeah. You'll have to have a thick skin that day.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, this is what we should do. You see, when you come onto our show, when it's the puppets asking you about why you love Doctor Who, and it's kind of wham bam, thank you, Mount Steadfast. You don't see me or Jamie at all. You just come straight on and you see the puppets. So basically, you can only communicate with the puppets. Yeah. So we're trying to destabilize you and really unsettle you. So Dan.
Was it like Statler and Waldorf?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, if we were ever in that company, it's only us two. We're trying our best. I wish we had talent, but Eastland Beckholder, we're going to try. Peter Harrington, story with a message.
That's terrifying. That's terrifying.
Yeah, Doug, I'll get you on.
It reminds me of an episode of, what was it, Angel? Angel had an episode where they all turned into Muppets or something. It's very scary.
Well, you see the giggle. You know, I keep saying the giggle had a moment when Donna Noble was surrounded by puppets.
Yes, that was terrifying.
Yeah, that was the best bit to me as a thrill. And that man Mr. Chatterjee, who was turned into a wooden puppet.
Yeah, that was nightmare stuff. More of that, please.
Exactly, but don't turn him back at the end. Don't do a reset. He's
No.
dead. He's dead.
No.
Um,
Let them die properly.
my Doctor Who twin, Peter Harrington, says story with a message built in, not the other way around. And he also has his concentration was, oh, Sherlock. Far too much to do. Yeah. We all know that period was difficult with Steven Moffat because we had a split season 7, didn't we?
It's overcommitted.
That being said, though, you go back. I know people. Yeah, there were some ups and downs there, but there's still right till the very end. There's some really good Doctor Who in there. That era is like Shakespeare on rewatch when by today's standards.
Yeah,
era, I think with New Who. Yeah. Moffat's definitely my favourite New Who era.
You see, this is an interesting argument. Tom Norton, hello. I love Moffat, but he should never have returned after Thrice Upon a Time. Doctor Who is dead. Moffat should have left his legacy intact. It is a danger. It is a real danger coming back. It's not a cliche for no reason at all.
It's like sorry. Sorry.
No. I mean, come in a minute. But basically, I was going to say, in one way, I applaud your bravery for coming back because they know their legacy's in danger. Of course they do, but they're coming back maybe through passion of Doctor Who. So I applaud their bravery in doing that because it would be easy to stay away and just say, nope, my legacy's there. But of course, there's a risk. Go on, Dan. What were you saying?
No, well, he mentions there Moffat should have left his legacy intact. And this is the thing that annoys me about R2D and Moffat and even Chibnall to some degree. It's like you guys have had custody of the program for 20 years now.
Yep, a third of the program.
Your legacy should have been your successors. I have to train my successors. My promotion depends on the people that I build up around me as I go up the ladder. Why isn't there a next generation of people that are running this show by now? It shouldn't be relying on a couple of people.
No, it's too big for that. And I think people have to stop being so kind of, a lot of 2024 is about pretending. And RTD, a bit of honesty to say he doesn't have that many sci-fi ideas left. I think I would grant him that because he wrote 4 series of Doctor Who and most of them were good. And so he said in the writer's tale he had no more sci-fi ideas left. And so I have no problem with him maybe being there for the showrunner who understands what Doctor Who is and he has a big overview. I just think it's overstretched. So when you get silly ideas like Sutekh sleeping on a TARDIS for 50 years, you think, I'm sorry, but that doesn't hold any water at all. David Hardin, who I now know is in Toronto, so I'll have to go back and visit him. In some weird way, that's the beauty of a live stream like this one. We get our frustrations out, detox, using humor. I hope so. So we're not sending nasty, hate-filled. Actually, David Hardin, you've kind of summed up why I do the detox, to be quite honest. I'm not baiting or trying to be half clever. No, it is a detox. It's supposed to be. That's why it's at this time of day as well. Cringeworthy, good to see you again, Sydney Rough Diamond. Sam and Anthony still with us as Mr. Contrarian. Politics should be based on reality, not personal choice. This is why I'm agreeing. I will talk to you soon, Simon, don't worry. Anthony Parkinson, who has been toxing us all night. I would imagine RTD filed all audience letters in the bin since he came back. It might be good advice to do that, though, as well. I mean, he'll have a few PAs, won't he? Cosmic Toyman, I don't allow my kids onto social media, 13-year-old twins. They are sponges at this age, and I'm not letting the woke mob infect them. And I think that's the fear. I've talked to so many parents about this, and it's interesting that some parents who are trying not to be, like the thought police, so that they're allowing so many hours a day on social media, etc., or it's supervised. But then you have Doctor Who doing Star Beast, and come on, everybody has to be responsible. What a village brings up a child. That's what they say, isn't it? A whole village brings up a child, and the media has to be. you know, you can do your messaging later, you can do your serious stuff, but honestly, can we just bring up kids to be safe? And when it's, as I call it, unsettled issues, it shouldn't be in the plot of the program. It shouldn't.
No,
So I understand your frustration, Cosmic Toyman, big time. Eastlyn, I've got a big fan here. Puppets as interviewers, please. Well, we could get you on, mate. I mean, just email us. You don't have to be seen if you don't want to be seen. Some people don't want to be seen, but we can interview you. So there we go. So just to say, we do feel for these people to a degree. But as Rachel quite rightly said, we need to be careful, as in they know what they're doing. And less provocative, triggering interviews might have helped ease their way back in if they were bothered. But as a conclusion, don't you find, though, and you saw it with the American elections, since they're just the most topical and recent, that one side of the argument says, but we're right. So we actually don't care for your side of the opinion. So we're not going to listen to you. So basically, I feel as though as a Doctor Who fan, I'm on that side where they're saying, you're wrong now. This is how it should be shown. This is diversity. This is representation. This is this. This is that. This is an emotional doctor, a gay doctor, a this, that. You're wrong. And it's like there's no meeting of the halfway here. They don't go, I know you've been watching Doctor Who since you were 3. You do know what you're talking about, but we're just trying to experiment with this. They don't talk like that. They kind of go, no, this has always been the case. You're wrong. Get out. And that seemed to be how the talk was in America. You
see it in the media over there. The after the election, a lot of the mainstream media are sitting there just stunned. They're desperately trying to figure out how they were so off the mark with the American people. And it's like, well, because you've taken an ideological position and you've been out of touch with your audience and you're not listening. And if you start your discussion with people, like, I have no doubt that if you sat down with Malcolm Hulk, for instance, or whatever, not even knowing the guy, but just knowing through his writing and the intelligence in his writing, I'm sure that if he was a raving lefty communist, which I don't know if he was, but he sounds like he might have been.
He was a socialist, wasn't he?
Yeah, socialist. Well, okay, so, but if you sat down and I have no doubt that he could have an intellectual meeting of the minds with someone with opposing views.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll get Michael Herbert back on. The thing is, to be a communist, then, I mean, I have to say the world has changed so much that you wonder what his politics would have been now. Would it have been kind of middle of the road? I mean, I really wonder, because there's nothing in his writing that tells you something terribly revolutionary.
Well, and you used to I love meeting people where those people that do want to have the intellectual argument with you on those sorts of things. But, there seems to be this, they've even had commentators over there saying, if you've got family members that didn't vote your way, you shouldn't go home and see your family for Christmas. It's like, are you insane? That is the dumbest. Like, that is such an immature headspace to be in.
What's fascinating is that the one side of the argument that is trying to win the argument on how we should treat people who have a view and cancel them and, the whole thing going on. And what they're doing is they're living a sci-fi concept, a dystopian future. I say to the kids, without having to go into detail, 1984, you read 1984 and you look outside that window, because we've got the thought police, haven't we? We've got thought crime. We've got people saying, stitch up, grass up your parents. Hitler had the Hitler Youth. We've now got people saying that. You've got a whole dystopian sci-fi going on now, and yet the people who are writing our program and others are not seeing that they're part of it. They're not seeing it.
Well, we're still down here, down under. We're still heading down a very dangerous path at the moment with this misinformation bill that's coming out at the moment. And what's really bothering, I think, most of us, is that both sides of politics seem to be interested in almost unilaterally trying to censor the internet, which, is just insane.
Yeah.
But the sorts of things that we saw crept into the US politics is, and probably, I don't know what the situation is with Keir Starmer, but we're probably seeing a bit of that here, where we're going to have, you can see, we just had our ex-prime minister, who's the US ambassador. He's been caught with he's deleted all his social media posts in the last week, where since 21, he's been mouthing off about Donald Trump, saying that he's intellectually devoid and he's a village idiot and things like this. And he's the bloody US ambassador. And we're saying, well, mate, you probably need to stand down and resign.
He's going to be there much longer.
Oh, mate, and they're now starting up. Oh, it's a News Corp. We need a Royal Commission into News Corp. This is all misinformation.
We see, I'm doing a classic review of State of Decay soon with some of the other lads. And if you think of the Crotons, there's two good old Doctor Who stories where it's the good old sci-fi trope of keep your population badly educated, make them thick, and you can rule them, you can oppress them. And the arguments about who owns X, who owns this, who owns that, who owns the media streams into people's heads seems to be kind of, we're living this now. We're living the Doctor Who dystopia now. Watch State of Decay, everybody. Everybody's kind of unable to learn, not allowed to be educated so the vampires can do what they want. Look at the Crotons. A bright person is taken into the Crotons and your mind is absorbed with them, and the rest of them are just thickos. This is what's going on. Go and read Henry Slessor's 4-page examination day, where at the age of 12, kids are examined. They're given a truth serum, and once they've actually therefore passed or failed their exam, if you've passed, you are executed. Wow. And it was a kid's 12th birthday, and the parents are looking at each other and they can't say anything because the kid has to go through this. Come on, this is what's going on. So we've got the blurring of reality and what we all thought was a great Doctor Who story, but it's happening in front of us. And I don't want to be art. I don't want to be in the diner trope. I don't want to be one of those Croton failures. I don't want to be one of those kind of thickos in State of Decay. Excuse me. I do want access to education.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It is a real worrying. It's worrying when you can recognize things that have been in your art and your textbooks and your novels, and you're starting to see it play out in real life, and it's really disturbing.
Well, and I've brought it back to Doctor Who, but we've really gone over it, and I've really enjoyed this chat, and the thread certainly has. In fact, they've stuck with us. So just to round off, Paul Richards, RTD blocked my cousin on Instagram for simply saying that Davros isn't technically in a wheelchair. I know there's a tin-eared effect. Cosmic Toy Man, who's stuck with us. I have a collected toy shop in the UK. Oh, write to us. I'd love to know where. I'd come and visit you. I see first. Yeah, I'd love to. Please, Cosmic Toyman, Gmail, please. I see firsthand how people have reacted to the changes in Doctor Who over recent years. Interesting, nobody has asked for a 15th Doctor figure, but I sell plenty of classics, and I might come and buy some. Please email us, mate. SG.
Any online presence?
SG, please. Look out for our classic review. Oh, I love the ending of State of Decay when the three who ruled at spoilers. No.
Spoiled.
Yeah. Eastland Burkholder, we need classically defined tolerance for diverse viewpoints and political stances. Yeah. I think the discourse in our world, we call ourselves democracies, but no democracy has been applied, really. It's really getting bent and twisted. I'll be honest about it. It's very dystopian.
Actually, I don't know if you've been paying attention to Elon Musk's with Twitter, with the Twitter files and all that.
There's a lot leaving, aren't there? On the left.
Well, yeah, but they'll be back because they need the people.
Well, all the Hollywood stars are leaving America. They said they would.
Yeah, well, the but the thing that amazes me is that, like, Elon's been very transparent about the problem. So how do you find the right people to curate this sort of thing? Because it goes bad no matter. I mean, I think he's tried it in numerous ways, and basically his solution now is just open source the algorithm, basically, so that everyone can see how stuff is graded and rated and amplified and things, so you can actually see behind the curtain of how the sausage is made, I guess. But it's really interesting because the people that you would say could curate these sorts of things are people that are unlikely to want to do it anyway, and the people that would want to do it are probably not qualified to be doing it because they'd become activists.